guys, I'm out here at Hat Rock State Park. It's Sunday and I'm hiking around, and I noticed that this sign here is talking about floods and how they formed in this area and how they changed the shape of our landscape and the rocks, and it's just a pretty cool place to see these canyons and rocks, how they've been changed by water over time, and the history of that right here. So hope you guys are having a good weekend. Hey fifth graders, I was out at Hat Rock State Park, and here's one of the signs that I took a picture of. I'm just going to read it to you guys so you can kind of have more of an idea of some of the things I was seeing and what was going on. It says, huge floods in the Ice Age. Thousands of years ago, a towering wall of water suddenly crashed through the Wallula Gap, upriver from where you now stand. Within weeks, the landscape was entirely submerged. About 15,000 years ago, towards the end of the Ice Age, an enormous lake in Montana formed when the Clark River was blocked by a large wall of ice, creating an ice dam. At some point, while melting, the dam collapsed. A towering wall of water, hundreds of feet high, thundered over the landscape and spread out across eastern Washington. The flow was slowed by the Wallula Gap, a narrow spot to the east of here. Behind the gap, the water backed up into a gigantic lake. The gap acted like a nozzle on a garden hose, forcing the water through it at tremendous pressure. This continued for several weeks. The water carved out huge boulders from the rocky landscape and hurtled them downriver. The water came from Montana. The entire contents of Lake Missoula, more than 600 cubic miles, or the volume of today's Lake Ontario and Lake Erie combined, emptied in less than 48 hours. Floods like that happened repeatedly throughout the Ice Age, at least 4 to 5 times, and perhaps as many as 100 times over 3,000 years. In 1805, when Lewis and Clark paddled their canoes into the Columbia River, the landscape they found had been tamed by these Ice Age floods. I'm doing some hiking, and one of the cool things is that you can see behind me there's this really unique shaped rock. It's called Hat Rock, and what I want to know is, how do you think it was formed? This last week we've been reading lots of informational articles about erosion and weathering, and I want to know your prediction. How do you think this rock was formed in Washington? So all of these layers in the rock back here are basalt layers that were formed from volcanic eruptions about 17 million years ago. And over time, the top layers of the soil were eroded away to leave these really cool looking rocks out here. And this is just evidence of one of them. How do you make a hat? Hat Rock is evidence of one of the most remarkable geologic events of all time. Around 17 million years ago, when prehistoric rhinoceros and camel roamed here, a chain of events began that drastically changed this region. A series of volcanic eruptions covered the landscape with spreading pools of basaltic lava. This happened repeatedly over millions of years, building up layers of basalt almost a mile thick. Here it's going to show the process of kind of where it was to where it is today. So 17 million years ago, before the eruptions, the warmer climate supported forests of ginkgo, elm, and cypress. Kind of a different place, all covered with forest, than the desert we know that is in a lot of eastern Washington now. Eruptions. Long cracks called fissures opened in the Earth's crust and spewed a spreading pool of lava over the land, destroying everything in its path. Cooling. The lava gradually cooled into a layer of basalt, shrinking and cracking in vertical columns. Some rocks are more evenly colonnaded than others. Slow, even rates of cooling caused straight, wide columns, while rapid cooling resulted in a more jumbled look. Repeated layers. Over millions of years, flow built upon flow. Different flows are often distinctly colored. In some places, the basalt is over a mile thick. Erosion. This is the part that we're working on studying so hard in science right now. And so this is kind of how this land changed and was, the rocks were chipped away over time. Erosion stripped away the topsoil and left cliffs exposed. Today, the rocks are beautifully exposed at Hat Rock. If you look off in the distance, you can see similar rocks. They are a piece of the same flow. So erosion, water erosion, wind erosion, all of these things change our land all the time. And it's all around us outside. So if you just want to, one of the things you guys I want to challenge you to do while we're distance learning is to get outside and observe and see what's out there. What phenomenon, what science do you notice when you're outside? Take a look, check it out, have some fun. Okay, this is Miss Keys signing out.